fighters, when the blip appeared, the radar would know by the sound of the output, radiation output of that airplane, exactly what it is. So on the radar screen of the new fighters, instead of a blip coming up, enemy blip, it says, MiG 25, da 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 da, or Sukhoi 29 or whatever, and and that's what that was all about at that Tonopah test range during the 80s. That was the big secret there. The secret that we don't know yet, that I haven't found out, between 1974 and 1975, Groom Lake was closed to everybody. There wasn't one single person going in or out. There was obviously, people going in and out, but there's no records. I had a friend who was in charge of part of the intelligence records there. He says, John, I'm telling you, there is not one scrap of paper from that era. We don't. I have no idea what happened for that year and a half or 2 years up at Groom Lake. So that's always been an interesting mystery. I've always wanted to know about that. Now the new secret base that they've got between exactly halfway between Tonopah and Groom Lake is called Sandia. And they started to build that in 1980, and it was finished in 1988. I know friends that work up there, and one of the interesting things about Sandia is how would they get people there, because there was 3,000-4,000 people working up there. They couldn't use those Boeing 737s because they would have to get another 7, and it would be too obvious to the public that something else was going on, and they couldn't use buses because nobody wants to get in a bus and ride for 3 hours up there, and they couldn't use cars because they don't want anybody, flying up there or driving up there and seeing all the stuff there is. So what they did is they built an underground maglev train that goes from Sandia to 3 of the major hotels in Las Vegas, and ends up at the new Special Projects hangar there at McCarran Field, and the people can just pretend they're guests of the hotel and park in guest parking and walk into the hotel and walk into a special room and punch in a code, and they get an elevator down to the train, get on the train, and they're at Sandia in 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, one of the things that happened is in 2004, the people that live here remember there was a power outage at the Bellagio for 1.5 days. Now, this is amazing because there are so many power protections for a large hotel, extra generators and everything, that it's impossible for a hotel to lose power for that long. But what happened is they were either working on the railroad or working on an extension of that railroad, and they hit the main power grid of the Bellagio. And it took them 1.5 days to fix it, and it was really a intelligence disaster because they had to include so many people into this secret train from Sandia to Las Vegas to help them get this thing fixed and get under control. They hit an underground aquifer, and it flooded the main power grid of the Bellagio.
Wow. Well, have you heard that the same train goes to Australia, to Pine Gap?
No, I think there's another way they get to Pine Gap.
Oh, really?
The Navy has their own separate train, and the main entrance for that is at the submarine bay in San Diego, and that thing can go around can go anywhere in the world in a matter of minutes. And it wasn't built by them; they found it and they got it working. It was from another civilization.
Amazing. Okay. Do you know how deep underground it goes?
No.
Okay. And what about out at Catalina? Are you aware of the base out there?
Where?
Catalina.
You're not talking about Nicholas Island, are you?
I don't know. It's out near Catalina. It's an undersea base.
See, by next to Catalina, there's two Navy bases. The one is the Nicholas Island, which has been there forever, and then there's a little place called Santa Barbara Island. Now, I've been to Santa Barbara Island, and it's too small for anything that was there, and I did some good hiking around. I don't think there's anything there, but Nicholas Island is a big island. It has a runway, and it's definite there is some stuff there. Now, one of the things I found out since I talked to you, I think, was the secret base at Hawthorne, Nevada, right in the middle of the desert. And, you know, I've been driving, my folks moved up to Reno in 30 or 40 years ago, or 1969, and I've been driving back and forth. And every time I drive into Hawthorne, there's a little sign there, and it says Naval Undersea Warfare Center. And there's a little lake there that's about 15 miles, 100 feet deep. And every time I wondered, what in the heck could they teach underwater warfare in a lake that's 15 miles long and 100 feet deep? And it took me 20 years to find out exactly what happened, and now I know what it is. The Pacific Ocean extends a great deal under the United States, which includes Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, and what they do is there's an entrance just north of Monterey, just north of Fort Ord, where the submarines can go down several hundred feet and enter the Pacific Ocean that lies underneath the United States plate, and they can actually go to these different places. And the reason they go to Hawthorne is because right across the street from this Mayfield Warfare Training Center is the U.S. Army Depot, where they make all these specialized Navy munitions. And all they have to do is when they get it ready to ship, they just have this little train that goes across the street and goes in one of the great big hangars there in Hawthorne, and goes down 4,300 feet, which is the exact altitude above the Pacific Ocean. It goes down to the level of the Pacific Ocean, and then there's a huge submarine base down there, and they transfer the weapons down there. There's
now, have you ever been in any of those places?
Have I been where?
In any of those places, in any of the undersea bases?
No, I've tried to. I drove into the guard gate and at Hawthorne, and this lady comes over in an Army uniform, and she says, "Get out of here! Turn around! You're not authorized to be in here." And I said, "Why not?" She says, "Because you're not. It's a Navy facility." And I said, "Well, could I get a tour?" And she says, "Hell no, you can't get a tour," and chased me out of there. And I got some pictures of the facility, but there's nothing you can see from the outside. Of course, I've never been in an underground base, but I've talked to many people that have, and they're all over the place. There's one at China Lake. Somebody saw a submarine at China Lake in the middle of California, just west of the Edwards Air Force Base. There's one in St. Louis, Missouri, and that one really had me stumped, because what I was trying to figure out is how they got a nuclear submarine to St. Louis, Missouri. Well, what they do is they sail up the Mississippi. And I talked with a friend who lives there, and he said, "Well, that explains it." And I said, "Explains what?" He says, "Well, they're dredging 24 hours a day in the Mississippi around the St. Louis area." And he said there's no reason to dredge, because most of the boats only have about 2 or 3 foot draft. There's no reason to dredge. And the reason they're dredging is because the submarine needs quite a bit more than 2 or 3 feet to secretly get into this place in St. Louis. There's also one at Memphis, Tennessee, where there's a big naval depot there.
Well, we've got one of our whistleblowers, Pete Peterson. I don't know if you ever listened to our interview with him. I think you would have found it really interesting if you had, but he says there's a lake in Idaho as well that is basically, accessed by these submarines.
Yeah, that's Sand. Oh shoot, what's the name of that